Greetings and salutations, internet denizens. It is I, Wolffoetowtech, and here we are. As the title probably tells you, I haven't exactly decided on what the title is going to be, but this is basically my introduction to Pokemon and me. Okay. Now, as you see, I have a lot of different Pokemon games I just pulled out and just put them on the shelf. The OG red version, my original red version, as well as my blue version, yellow version, Pokemon Pinball, Ruby, Fire Red, Ed version, Emerald, and so forth. And my gold and silver, you know. So this is very important to talk about quickly, as I'm going to go ahead and start doing a little series with sword and shield, or shield and sword, because I'm going to go in a alliterative order and go with SH before SW. I'm not going to do Pokemon Pikachu. Let's Go Pikachu. Tanner plays. He shows up on this channel every so often and says hi in the comments below, if there are still comments below. Has been doing a Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu playthrough. So Tanner plays, like in Tanner as in the occupation. Tanner plays. So first and foremost, I had to get this out of the way. This is really important. When I was really young, I was an extreme Pokemon fan. To a ridiculous degree, but only to the degree in which I had the financial capacity to exert. Obviously, there was limitations in my childhood. I had a lot of issues, but I kept moving forward here. Now, as you notice, there's something off in my Pokemon collection, in my game collection. You notice it is the thickest and the greatest variety of games was when early on, is because when I was really young, as I said, I was really crazy for Pokemon, to the point where I basically had to figure out how to recharge batteries with magnets. I used the power of magnets off of refrigerators and stuff and out of microwaves to recharge batteries. The trick is, if you take like a bunch of double A's and you take a magnet, you get one of those thicker ones, a thicker magnet, you lay it flat on the table on a counter, and you stack all the batteries negative side down. Or it could be positive side down, but positive is harder to balance on something because of that little nub. I stood them up on top of the battery, and then I would take another battery and set it on top, another magnet on top of the batteries. That would recharge up the batteries. I could play the batteries down to dead, and I could then put them on my magnets, recharge them up, and play it again. I didn't have much money, so I could not afford to buy tons and tons of batteries to feed my Game Boy. And trust me, I went through a lot of batteries, and I went through a lot of magnets, because after you do it with about 10 times or so, the magnets get weaker and weaker, and the batteries charge less and less. Even if you put new magnets on the batteries, so the battery half-life on the old alkaline batteries would start falling by halves. So if you had, say, like 10 hours of gameplay time on the first 5 charges, the next 4 or 5-ish will be 5 to 6 hours of gameplay time. And then after that, it would fall to like 2.5 hours, and then they would fall to barely 1 hour, and I've blown up numerous batteries. You would get to the point where the batteries would just basically blow themselves out, or they would literally not keep a charge anymore. But that was pretty much how extreme I was when it was coming to playing Pokemon. I also drew up entire concepts for another game, very much in the same style as the early as Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. This was between I made up this whole document about this thick of gameplay mechanics and concepts, which Game Freak has basically just managed to get 75% close to matching between Pokemon Sword and Shield and Pokemon Sun in components. It was my game concept was actually more structured like a MMORPG Pokemon version. If I ever had a ton of money, I would finance a team to make it, and I already have the critters all designed out. I have a thick ass book of critters I drew up when I was a kid. Just had to update a whole bunch of them. Came up with whole new gameplay mechanics, evolution systems. Haven't even been touched by Game Freak yet. I went really deep into it and went crazy. Uh, I basically started. I got most of the way through it, designing that thing up, right past Gold and Silver coming out, and just before Fire Red and not Fire Red, Ruby and Sapphire version came out, and then later on Fire Red came out. As you notice, that's right where it kind of tips off. I never really cared for Ruby version very much. You really had to have a lot of HM slaves to get around in that game, and that was kind of the annoying side of it. It's nicer that the later versions basically do away with HMs for the most part and utilize other mechanics to get around and continuously adding HMs and to do actions, which then involves if you remove a Pokemon from your team that knows an HM and you do not have Pokemon in your team that can learn that HM, then you are kind of screwed if you had to go through a place because you have to go back and get that old Pokemon. And this is a common complaint with a lot of people and Pokemon. But right around Ruby version was right around the point where my energy level was dipping out of Pokemon. I was expanding into new genres of gaming because I never was a RPG fan until say like Pokemon. And once I cut my teeth on Pokemon, I started expanding into other RPGs, and got into whole new genres beyond that. But at that point, I played so much Pokemon, I just could not play a whole lot more Pokemon. So every Pokemon game, every generation after that, I did not get nearly as far as I did before, and I did not buy as many games as I did before. The original Red and Blue and Yellow, I had all 151 Pokemon. I had them all over level 75. I spent time just literally leveling up Magikarp and Caterpies and stopping them from evolving, uh, just so I can get them up to the near 75 so I can compare stats between all the Pokemon that way. Keep in mind that this was before the internet where you had easy access to websites and you could compile stuff with other people. I was pretty much working entirely on my own with the earlier generations of games on scrap notes of paper, trying to work out what was the most optimum Pokemon in a team by myself, besides using Nintendo Power and the guides they came out with as well. So I really got really deep into it, and I got really burnt out on it. Uh, keep telling myself I'm going to get back into it. I did that with Pokemon. I thought about doing that with Pokemon White and Black version. I started into the game. I played partially into the game, and I got distracted by something else. And from Pearl version on, I got shorter and shorter into the games, where I would literally get to the point where I literally just start the game, get through the first one or two gyms, and I would get distracted by some other game, and I would just go off and play that game. So, yeah. I got most of the way through this one right here, this Pearl version. Uh, yeah. So that's basically my short intro on my life story with Pokemon. There's other stories that are tied into Pokemon that I might mention in the gameplay videos. However, I usually try to keep it to the game itself, not wander off into other games and topics when I'm playing a game. So there. And if you're curious, there's these two games right here that are Hold and Sword and Shield. That is Castlevania, uh, Dawn of Sorrow, and Animal Crossing. I was a really big fan of Animal Crossing, and I got really into Castlevanias, the 2D ones, right around the Game Boy Advanced ones, But I also picked up Castlevania Symphony. I also got Castlevania Symphony of the Night, as well as a whole bunch of others. Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff in there. I'm going to, as I said, the next gameplay video series I'm going to add in is going to be Pokemon Shield and Sword. And then at that point, there's going to be a segue out on the Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening videos, and then an entry in another game franchise coming in. So I'm not entirely certain what I'm going to add in, but what I'm thinking is I'm going to add in a teen-rated game, Daemon X Machina. I might add that in to the cycle, or Fire Emblem Warriors. There's also the potentiality I might actually just say screw it, and I'm just going to just do a few videos of each game, just the beginning end of each game, and then segue out and not play so deep into them. That way you get at least a few videos of each game and franchise, and at that point, if people want more of it, they could punch into the comments and like it, or tell me on various other platforms as to what they like. And I'll probably add more of that in or not. Keep in mind that I have a bias or attraction to certain franchises. So some games I will just naturally just keep playing because I really enjoy playing certain franchises of games. Yeah. Legend of Zelda is always easy because I've always loved Zelda games. I loved Mario Kart and Smash Bros. Kirby games I love a lot. My first Kirby game I ever bought with my own money was from GameStop. I bought that used. It was one of those games I did not buy when it first came out, so I bought it later. By the way, if you are buying games for the Nintendo Switch, do not buy pre-owned games. Just don't. Just buy new. The problem with pre-owned games is pirates/hackers will copy the code off the game card, and they'll copy the game. They'll copy the ID code off the card, and they will put that on their Nintendo Switch or distribute it to their friends to play. Now the problem with that is that now there is multiple copies of a game with the same ID authentication code tagged into them. When a Nintendo Switch connects online, it communicates with the Nintendo servers, and all the games have their ID codes, and the Nintendo Switch has an ID code attached to it, which results in the Nintendo Switch online network realizing or picking up that there is multiple copies of people with the same playing Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu with the same ID code. This has never happened to me before. I usually buy a lot of used games, but with the Nintendo Switch, I've been completely avoiding it completely to buying used games. So the problem is that when Nintendo picks up that there is multiple copies of the same game and they literally have the exact same ID code or security ID code, they brick the systems or they lock them or ban them from the network. They ban them from the network if it's mild. Well, they brick the system if it's severe. Like the person keeps putting tons of games on their system that have the exact same code as someone else, or a bunch of people have the same ID codes for a bunch of games. So yeah, Nintendo doesn't like you copying their games and handing them out to everyone. And there's the squirrel. And I think that's the mother or child. It's getting dark outside, so I can't tell. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Uh, as I said, the next two games I'm going to throw into the rotation is going to be Pokemon Shield and Pokemon Sword. As from there, I'm not entirely certain what I want to toss. Else, I'm going to toss in. If people want, I might stick in, say, like Star Fox Zero or Hyrule Warriors or The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker or some other game. I have a natural attraction to just playing E games. I enjoy T games when they're particularly well made, but I'm not big into M-rated games. It's just something that never really clicked with me. I might, at some point, do a bunch of Godzilla games. I might do a bunch of Godzilla games because I got a lot of Godzilla games. One of my favorite games from the NES was actually Godzilla Monster of Monsters. So I have as many Godzilla video games as I could hunt down. And I'm just trying to look to see if I got Godzilla Monster of Monsters out in the open I can quickly grab, but no, I don't. But Godzilla Monster of Monsters is one of my favorites. I grew up on that game. I used to play that game in late into the night. Early in the morning and late into the night. So, if you have any requests, would like me to post anything, please dump it in the comments below or go over to the Facebook page and leave it. And I'll take it into an account. Keep in mind, I will take it into account. It's not a guaranteed deal. But yet again, see you again next time. Sorry, I keep wandering off into something else.